Happy Yule to all my faithful fans. Large fierce mammal coming to you from a walk in the very wintry looking woods. Now, we call this midwinter because we're past by a number of days the winter solstice, when steadily shortening days and lengthening nights reverse, and you start getting the kind of longer periods of daylight that you'd need a very accurate timepiece to be able to detect. But nonetheless, here in Canada, though, we call this midwinter. I guess it's an exciting thing to think that we're on our way up, but all the parts of the winter that'll generally kill you haven't happened yet, so we live in hope. So I'm out here, I'm going to walk along. It's been a while since I've spoken to you all, and I'd like to tell you a couple of stories. Where I am right now, I've lived, this is my fourth winter here. So as I do when I first move somewhere, I get to know the local woods and let the local woods and its denizens, corporeal and otherwise, get to know me. So yeah, it's like coming to anyone else's house. You kind of got to introduce yourself gradually and don't be an asshole. So in a few days' time, actually within 24 hours, we're supposed to get very warm temperatures. I say very warm, +5, +7 degrees Celsius, and rain, and most of this snow will probably disappear. And it kind of reminds me of the year when I was in either late high school, early university, still living with my parents in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, when I said, well, you know, I enjoy the woods so much, and it's a pain in the ass to get through the winters that we had back then in the woods with the snow up to your ass. So I decided I would buy a pair of snowshoes using Canadian Tire money, the paper kind, which I'll explain another day. But anyway, great outdoor kind of source. So I bought them around Christmas time. They were on sale. Brought them home. We had lots of snow. Sort of like this, except a little more back in those days, couple feet. And then the temperatures shot up and the rain began. Now, my sister and one of her friends had built a snowman in the backyard of my parents' house. You could see it from the kitchen window. And every time you went to get anything from the kitchen or wash your hands or rinse a mug, you saw it, and the rain came. And it rained, and it rained, and the warmth stayed. And then eventually, the yard was completely bare of snow, except for a small piece of this snowman. And that snowman winnowed down to a nub about the size of your fist. And but the rain continued. So basically, I got up one morning, and I looked out the window, and there was about a cupful of snow remaining, most of it sort of a gray slush. And then it rained and it rained until that gray slush ball was still just barely visible. And then it turned into nothing. It was gone. And then it rained just a little bit longer to make its point. The rain stopped. The sun came out. The temperature dropped. And it stayed freezing in an open winter for the rest of the winter. I didn't get to use my snowshoes till the following year. But you know what? Nature can be counted upon to give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. It's a lucky day when the two are the same thing. But there you have it. So, another story from when the first winter I was here. So I came out, it was kind of the opposite of this. There was no snow, and then fresh snow fell. It's a poor metaphor, but I'm going to use it anyway. We all know what Wikipedia is. It's an encyclopedia, if you want to call it that, a compendium of knowledge that can be added, where pages can be created or added to, modified over time, edited, and you can use it as an encyclopedia, written by its users. Well, the woods is like that. And people who have the ability to read the woods in all seasons are less inconvenienced than this, but the woods with snow down is just like that. Tells you who's there, what they're doing there, and sort of a little bit of reading the land. You don't need a lot of skill to see footprints in the snow. So I went for a walk through the woods, following first the trails, the old hauling roads left by man, some of which are kept open by people on various types of ATVs all times of the year. And then there are, of course, game trails kept open to a large degree by deer, who have a tendency to keep things easy traveling. So these have been traversed by generations of deer and those of us who also use the trails on occasion. So I went back, and it was a little later in the year than this. Right now it's late December, and it was, I think, the first week or two of January, on the cusp of the coyote mating season. And we have a fairly healthy population of both white-tailed deer and coyotes around these parts. The coyotes come where I'm walking right now, which is still fairly close to where my residence is, but nonetheless, they're more common further back. So anyway, I'm going along and I'm walking through the woods, no snow down, and I'm checking things out and making notes and keeping my mouth shut and my eyes and ears open. When I returned the next day, a small amount of snow had fallen, and that continued to fall, and I followed a different route home. And this time I had seen some coyote tracks at a certain crossroads. Didn't hear them or see them. They were fairly new, but anyway, not unusual. One larger, one smaller, potentially a mating pair developing. Anyway, I don't know. I continued on my way, and this time I took a slightly different route that took me along the edge of the lake here. It was rough slogging, ground was frozen, so whenever you stepped on a non-vertical or non-horizontal surface, your foot tended to slide. But I took my time and I made my way back and decided this was not a roadway I would want to use again in the future. Nonetheless, it took me through a swamp, and I followed my way through there, got back to one of the main trails, and came home. So the next day, I went back again. More snow had fallen, but not enough to hide my tracks. And in under the trees, because we're in a hemlock forest here with a fairly healthy canopy overhead, I could see my tracks where I had left the main trail and started toward the lake were paralleled at almost perfectly their entire distance the tracks of a coyote that stayed about roughly 4 feet, call it that, to the right of the trail I was following. And I followed that back, and yes, good afternoon. I followed that back all the way, and every step of the way, like it was on a leash, a solitary coyote had followed my track, staying almost perfectly 4 feet to my right. Now, I know what I think that means. I know what my friend Jim Keating thinks that means, and some of his friends, but I'll leave it up to you to make your own opinions about that. But I felt a little more welcome in those woods after that. Or I could have been being seen off, but nonetheless, I've been in those woods a lot in the years that I've been here, and I intend to be there a lot more, and never had a time to feel like I wasn't completely welcome. So maybe let's leave it at that. A little advice: if you're going to be in the woods, right now in the distance, I can hear it's either a snowmobile or an ATV of some sort ripping through some of the trails that I just mentioned. They can't go fast enough. They can't make enough noise. Those are valuable tools in the right hands, but there's the fun being had. I don't think they'll find coyote tracks following their trail. So I may be posting again before the end of the year, but in the meantime, to you and yours, a very, very, very good holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Yule, and the very best of the change of the calendar year. I know a lot of you have had some shitty 2024. Let's hope that at least symbolically that creates a change in fortunes. So until next time.